welcome everybody. Orange Podcast Bad, episode 7. Welcome back. We got Paul with us. Paul, how you doing?
Good, top of the world, Ma. I was thinking that was a Joe Bonamassa.
Well, I told you I've been working on all this stuff in the background and or like setting it all up, and so we'll go with that one until we find something cooler.
But I got to say right now, I don't think there is anything cooler. And welcome everybody. I'm glad to have you guys on board with us. We're going to talk about some pertinent things, and then we're going to have some shenanigans.
We are.
It's Sean, and Sean is a shenanigonian.
That I am. So, apparently, all the weather you guys got, what was that? Was that Friday? And then
Yes.
Saturday, it hit like southern Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee. No, we're not getting any of the winds, but we're getting finally over the rain over here in the Carolinas. I took a look at the river levels. Nothing bad should happen, but it's a lot of rain. A lot of rain.
Man. Dude, I went out to our Veterans Memorial here in town. We've got a Huey gunship up on a pedestal, and the rear propeller blade was tied down, to the body of the aircraft, and it had broken loose. And I was like,
whoa,
oh my God, this is going to be bad. But luckily, it all stayed together and stuff. So we're going to get a bucket truck and try to get that, put back together and that kind of thing.
Well, I wonder if on the inside you just tack weld it, the wheel.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you're never going to fly it again.
Right.
So, right, just tack weld the wheel to the mount. Maybe that'd be something somebody can get up there, industrious electrician or welder.
So I got to tell you, we came across. So we got this cool little bar that we all go to, that all the Hawkinsonians go to, and hang out. Anybody who's anybody goes to this place. Well, I met this cat daddy that was a former Army helicopter pilot on that actual frame, on that actual bird, that he had hundreds of hours of time in I forget, but Iraq and the first Iraq and that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? He's not quite our age, but he's early to mid 50s guy, quite, an accomplished guy. And he said that he would help us, get that thing really back in shape so that we could have the marker lights working.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so we've got a couple of crash test dummies in flight suits, that are, the front guy and the weapons systems officer. But they've been out there so long, they're kind of like, they don't look like they're actually flying a bird. So
right.
Yeah. He says he had he was a technical advisor on a couple of movies and stuff. And so he has access to these pilot dummies through his, connections in Hollywood and Vegas and Texas. So he said he could get us a couple of new pilots and a weapons systems officer, replace those guys that are in there.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, and they're much more lifelike, and they've got the Vietnam era, uh, flight suits,
Right.
which the ones that are in there now are not. They're just whatever we came up with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, whatever you could find.
Yeah, and it was just a fluke. I just was sitting next to this guy at the bar, and we were talking about stuff, and I told him I was on the advisory board for the memorial, and he's like, "Oh yeah, dude, that's cool. I saw that bird down there. I flew one just like it,
Wow.
back in '93." And I was like, "Holy cow, dude!" So we hit it off right away.
Absolutely.
Sean, this guy has a 1965 C10 Chevy pickup short box with a
Whoa.
383 stroker motor in it, power steering, power brakes, air conditioning, and that's his daily.
That's his daily?
That's his
Wow.
daily. We see him all over town all the time. And
That's incredible.
you know how pilots are. They're all, frustrated engineers and stuff. So
Absolutely.
yeah, he said, I built this thing in, 90 or 91. And I'm like, wait, you've been driving that since 90 or 91? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I jerked the motor out in 2003, rebuilt it, put it back in. Yeah, it's good to
Nothing.
go.
Nothing. Didn't need help. Didn't call a friend.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I'm like, my man.
I just got on the internet, ordered everything I wanted, showed up UPS, and
Yep.
I put it all together.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
And
ingenuity behind
I
it.
love guys like that. He's got his hair's about like yours, got a long
Oh,
ponytail.
it's got
Yeah, he got a long ponytail, and he doesn't give two shits about anything. And I'm like, so, you know, I'm thinking, your wife's got a Panamera or, because clearly they have a little bit of money and stuff, right?
sure.
Because he plays golf and, you know what I mean. And he's like, no, she's in a '93 Montero. I took a Mitsubishi Montero and rebuilt it, and you couldn't blast her out of that thing. So here's this guy, our generation does like a '65 Chevy and a '93 Montero. He doesn't care about any of the new stuff.
It's incredible.
Isn't it, Sean? It
Yes.
really is just incredible. And he is just the really one of the nicest guys ever. Just he's got no opinion about it. He won't debate. You know how when you get in a little local bar, everybody, watches the TV and rah, 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 rah.
Yeah.
He he never said
Well, you know
nothing.
what? There's an actual term for what that's called. It's called a bargument.
A
And you
what?
and I have been in many. A bargument.
Oh, a bargument.
Barguments.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, where you just everyone's had a couple, you're feeling good, and
yeah.
you're just arguing just for the sake of a
Just
good
for the
old
sake of
fashioned
argument.
argument.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you're like, man, do you remember when the Cubs won? No, I don't. Was it when you still had that goat?
Yeah. 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 It's really nice to be around a guy. It just really is a good joke.
Yep.
And we've got 3 or 4 guys on the Veterans Memorial Association that are avid golfers, and
Yeah.
they're like, "Yeah, we don't want to play golf with him because he embarrasses us."
I gotta find the trying to where is it? I must have hit a button wrong. I thought I was gonna be able to get it up here on X too. We'll fix that later. I was gonna send that out. No worries. Anyways, hey, one of the things I saw over the weekend was these rallies. They were having hands-off rallies. hands off our stuff, hands off our Social Security, hands off our Medicaid. All of this is untrue. It's just untrue. No, Elon Musk, Donald Trump is not taking away your Social Security. He's taking away fraud inside of it, which maybe you'll get more Social Security. Maybe you'll get
That'd be
better
awesome.
Medicaid,
Yeah.
Medicaid or Medicare.
Yep.
But I was just watching, because it's on your social media feed. You're scrolling through.
Yep.
If somebody has a box on the wall and they actually had it tuned to a news channel, they had it plastered up there. I don't watch TV news, not even local news. It's all that's all crap to
Yep.
me. But I noticed they're all boomers. They're all 60 to 90 years old.
Yep.
There's so a couple of things, observations you can make. They're reliving the 1960s when they were protesting in the 60s and love, peace, and quaaludes. It was their thing, right?
Quaaludes. Yeah.
Am I
Yeah.
wrong?
Yeah. No. Lemon
They were
714. Yeah.
that's what they were when they were protesting. They were
Yep.
all high as a kite, and man, they loved their lewds. Uh, there was no young people, and I say they're suffering from a depopulation problem because they want depopulation for the Green Deal, to save the planet, but they don't realize that what they're doing is forcing all the young people to go either libertarian or Republican. They don't want anything to do with the freak shows that are out there is 60, 70, 80, 90 years old, protesting against Musk and Trump. And I think that's a major problem for them coming into 26 and the midterm elections.
No, 100%. Yeah. 100%. And I got to tell you, I'm at minimum, I'm pleasantly surprised.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because, there's the old Churchill doctrine, right? If you are young and you're not liberal,
Yes.
you have no heart. And if you're uh, old and liberal, you have no brain.
Yeah.
So I just, I gotta say, with the young people, really, and I gotta, both of my kids are typical kids, right? They're, even though my son's airborne in the Army and Special Forces and does all this pointy end of the spear stuff, he started out, you know, I wouldn't say uber liberal, but he
Yep.
was, you know, uh, I would say he was pretty far left of center, not progressive, but, kind of hippie ish, right?
Yep. Very normal.
And yeah, and now he's 31 and he's, sewn on staff sergeant. He's not having it. He's not having it. And he's actually told me, Sean, he goes, Dad, the things I believed in, which were contrary to what you believed in, he said, as an aside, that was hard for me to go against my dad, in my conservative beliefs. But he said, now that I'm a sergeant and I've got people under me and I've got to make decisions and stuff, um, you you really, Dad, you weren't as dumb as I thought you were.
Right. Right. I know. I will tell you, I've watched it with three kids. Two older stepkids. One of them's already married off. The other one, I don't know how many kids he's gonna have. It'll probably be a lot. He's just a really good-looking young man. uh, and then my youngest who started off, very young and just love her a daddy, right? And well, daddy liked Trump, so she just walked around all day long at preschool. Trump, Trump,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then
Daddy's girl. Yeah,
as she got into her teenage years and
yeah.
schools started to indoctrinate, and you could see the changeover, right?
Did you
Where
really?
sh Yeah, because she's like, one day she's just like, "I don't like Trump anymore." I was like, "Well, that's okay." I was like,
Yeah,
still not old enough to vote, so but you could watch the progression, and that's what you think of. By the end of high school, it's very normal for kids coming out of high school, going into voting age, and being what we would have called liberal at the time. Now it's much farther left. We could use terms like progressive or
it's
even
progressive. Yeah,
socialist.
yeah,
And all the way through college, and it usually takes a few years after that, or you said, with the service, even going into the
yeah,
service, and then going through being adulting and having responsibilities for people underneath
yeah,
you, making decisions, whether it's business or whether it's military, that affects those people under you. When you
yeah.
finally go, this none of that stuff I thought or that I was taught in high
Right,
school makes any damn sense
right.
at
Yeah,
all.
and that's what my son said. He said, uh, as far as leadership qualities go, I could not, you know, consciously lead these guys, with a liberal progressive. It just didn't make sense. It didn't fit with the army. It didn't fit with the warfighter program. And he's like, the army. I love about him is he's loyal.
Oh yeah.
The army pays my salary. I'm going to do what the army wants. The army pays me. I'm going to stand up and do what they want me to do.
Yeah.
And it just occurred to him that his, you know, high school and early college was not what the army wanted. And so instead of getting pissed off and getting out of the army and being disillusioned and all that, he re-enlisted, got the next rank up, and said, "No, I'm in. I'm all in."
Right.
And I it's so funny, Sean, because I just I love this kid. I just watched him blossom, and now he's a leader. There's no doubt in my mind that he's going to get out of the military and make six figures and whatever he decides to do in government or things like
Yeah.
that. His wife is a program manager for a Mentum, and she makes good scratch,
Oh yeah.
and she got her master's from George Mason University in D.C., and she's not liberal at all.
Wow.
I mean, she was when she got her degree.
Yeah.
So she wanted to go to work for State Department, and then she wanted to go to work for USAID.
Sure.
And then she was like, I, this USAID stuff is not what I thought it was when I was going to school.
Right.
And all the
Well,
George Mason
because
folks were like, "Oh, USAID is the way to go." You need to. It's like Peace Corps with a salary and all that kind of stuff. And she was like, "Yeah, no, that, no, that's not what I'm thinking."
there's a ton of money in it. Well, there was a ton of money in it, right?
Yeah,
But it wasn't like they say it's for all right. Like they make it sound like it goes to all these great causes,
right.
feeding the Ethiopians.
Yeah,
The Ethiopians aren't eating anything off that money that gets sent there. We
no,
what didn't Mr. Beast do a podcast where he drilled a bunch of wells in northern Africa to give these people clean water, and they looked at him and laughed, and they just use it
yeah,
they use it to go to the bathroom.
yeah.
I mean, this is not, and that's what the nobody. Many Americans don't understand it, but across the globe, people thought that all this USAID money was going to something, some good, noble, maybe Christian style cause, and none of that was happening. And
It just
Mr.
doesn't happen
Beast's
that
money
way.
wasn't
Yeah.
even, that was his money. And he
Yep.
had a failed experiment trying to help over on
Yeah.
the.
I think I've told you this before, but when we first went to Darfur with the State Department, we set up these, camps for Darfur refugees from
Right.
Sudan, right? And we drilled all these boreholes, for water, and then we attached what we call a ROPU, a reverse osmosis
Yeah.
water
Oh, yeah, yeah.
purification system, right? Well, we had like a dozen of them, and there's a camp with 10,000 people in them. We gave all of them the shits, and
Right.
we didn't know why. So we got this water engineer from Germany, hired him, brought him down, and he said, "Your fucking water's too clean. You can't give these people this clean of water. They're not used to it."
Hmm.
So, like 3 levels of filters, we're pulling out of the ROPU, to the water that would give you and me the shits,
Oh, yeah.
was, you know, and we got everybody healed up and going, in the right direction and stuff. But that's how USAID and all that arrogant nation building bullshit happens.
Oh, it's gross. Oh, I do want to go back to, with all of that said, that we just mentioned. I think the Democrats are losing the youth because they just don't want to hear. Let's set USAID aside. They probably don't even know what we're talking about with that. They haven't had time to
Yeah,
look into it in their life, but
yeah,
they don't want to look at people essaying effigies of Donald Trump and like all of the gross stuff you saw at these protests, and socialism is better than fascism was one of the signs, and I laughed at it. And I actually made a post. I said, I quoted them: "Socialism, that's what their sign said, is better than fascism," meaning they're socialist and they think Trump's a fascist. And I
yeah,
said, "My lord, all you want to do is give up your freedom? That's nuts.
yeah.
You really believe socialism is going to make your life better?
Make your life better, and it
It
doesn't.
never has. It never will. The whole 'we'll get it right this time' crowd. Hey, look at China. That's socialism with a
Yeah,
sprinkle of capitalism, thanks to Ronald Reagan.
yeah,
And I think young people are coming out and just looking at the behavior of, Gen X that are progressive, and a boomer generation that are progressive, and going, I dude, you guys are all freaking weirdos. I don't want anything to do with this,
yeah,
right? Like, you're walking around like they're dog walking people in Trump masks. Literally got a guy on all four with a Trump mask on. They're walking him with a
yeah.
collar and a leash. And I think these kids are looking at that and going, I'd rather go back to the days of just like when you guys had like rock and roll and quaaludes.
Right. Yeah. No, 100%. I agree with you. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I look, it's a win for us ultimately because I think the Progressive Party just population's out. They're not going to have anybody left because they can't get any new people. What's the youngest they got? AOC? How old is AOC? Almost
Yeah.
40?
Yeah. Late 30s. Yeah. I
So,
just and the other thing is, I I just don't know. You would expect Schumer and those guys. being, 40-year liberals to come back to the center because they were there when Clinton was there and they were centrist when Clinton was there. Why? Because Clinton was centrist.
It was the good old days
It was
of
the good old days.
blue dog
But there's no
Democrats.
blue dogs. There are no, and it's so divisive. There's just no blue dogs, and the progressives are like, you're going to do what we want, or you're a piece of shit. And I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat,
Right. Well,
right?
and I
If
think
you're a Mansion, yeah, you're a piece of shit, dude. Well, no, I'm
Kristen
a
Sinema.
pragmatic, centrist Democrat.
Kristen
Uh,
Sinema went through the same thing. Arizona.
Fetterman.
Fetterman.
Look at John Fetterman. He's like, I don't think we should not be talking to each other. That doesn't make any sense.
He
And
doesn't
they
give it.
just attacked him.
They do, but he doesn't give a shit.
Mm-mm.
Unlike Schumer, that's where Schumer and Pelosi have a problem. They've kowtowed to the most far left extremist minority in their party, and there's no going back from that.
Right.
They
Yeah.
can't say, all right, that was a mistake, and you guys are nuts, and go sit
Yeah.
down. They
Let's
can't.
back it down a notch. Yeah.
They can't. That's why I say, even though he hasn't formally announced it yet, you're looking at outgoing minority leader Chuck Schumer in the Senate. There's no way in hell that he's going to remain in power when his primary comes up. There was a poll run. Don't quote me. I want to say it was like New York Times. It was in their area. It was in New York, and AOC is beating Schumer for his Senate seat by 28 points in that poll. They're done with the geezers.
What?
The progressives want the super far ultra left. Ultra left. And I say, by all means, go for it. Because you're not going to win. You're not getting the young voter. You're not getting the 18 to 24 demographic,
You're just
which
not. You're not.
traditionally you've had since the 1960s.
Yeah.
It's
You're not.
gone.
I don't give a shit that
They'll
you're a
even if they sit
Boston,
out, you lose.
bartender. You're you're not. And if they give a Boston bartender that kind of power with
Hmm.
Ilhan Omar and uh Baldy Gal, whatever her name is,
Oh yeah.
you know, no, no. There's because, and here's the reason is the thing that you said, you had before where they showed that crowded room of 75 and up.
Hmm.
They're not, they're going, uh-uh.
Right.
No, we're not doing your bullshit.
No. The
You
whole
know,
we're not the whole we're going forward to them is going as far socialist
yeah,
is their minds can dream up.
yeah.
Damn, damn the country, damn the West. And
Hmm.
I think they're going to primary out people like Schumer. They're going to primary out people like Pelosi. Now, is it a good thing for us? Only because, and this is why I brought it up. If the 18 to 24-year-olds say both your sides suck and just sit out, the Democrats lose because they've had the 18 to 24-year-old vote since the 1960s. So if they just sit on their butts when it comes to voting time, the Democrats don't win. Doesn't matter who they put in. It could be AOC as a senator.
Yeah,
She's not going to, she probably won't even, she might win the primary, but she may not win that seat. She might lose that to a Republican because the 18 to 24-year-old sat out and we're deporting the illegal voter. Oh, don't tell me they didn't vote. Don't tell me that. No, 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 no.
so great time for a segue. why does a federal district level judge get to drop the hammer on the executive branch? Never
Supreme,
seen it, never heard of it. It doesn't work.
they don't.
Why is this? Why is Sean? Why is this not over already? Why isn't and I know they're going up to the Supreme Court and and all that. It shouldn't go to the Supreme Court because let me tell you something. You, Judge Oda Day in Nevada, says you've got to bring that MS-13 crime leader back here before my bench so that I can talk to him when the at the end of the day he came in the country illegally. He does not have due process because
Nope.
he's not an anybody. So I I just don't understand why the conservative reaction hasn't been time out, sport Billy. You don't know what you're talking about. We're not paying attention to you. This is what we're doing, and five more airplanes take off. I mean, they've stopped the airplanes to acquiesce to these guys, and they don't have any standing, Sean. I don't get that.
Well, they don't have jurisdiction. So district court judges were implemented to relieve some of the burden of the Supreme Court. That was it. So say the district court judge in the District of Florida and Georgia, and maybe it covers
Yeah.
part of do have jurisdiction over that. So if this criminal, illegal alien who also has ties to terrorist gang organizations, the left is up there screaming he doesn't. Yes, he does. It's in the court documents. Oh, he also the stay he won only said for his protection, he couldn't go back to El Salvador. That was the mistake that was made, clerical error that they said was made. That doesn't mean we can't send him to Guantanamo or Venezuela or
Wait,
Brazil
say
or
that
anywhere
again.
else.
Uh, you
So this
lost me. I don't
clerical
know.
error, where the judge says he has to come back, the clerical error
Right.
was that the stay he was awarded was that he because he's a gang member and he would go through undue torture by going back to El Salvador, where rival gang members would torture him. That was the stay. So the clerical mistake was that we sent him to El Salvador, which they had to stay against. That doesn't mean. I mean, even if the judge, whatever
Oh,
his
I
name
got
was,
you. Send him to Guantanamo then.
send him to Guantanamo.
Yeah.
Yeah, send him to Cuba. Send him to Guantanamo. Send him to Javier Milei will find a place for him.
But the other thing I don't understand is why do we give a shit if the rival gang member's gonna cut his heart out and eat it when he gets to El Salvador? That's got nothing to do with the United States of America.
It doesn't. And that's all the people just screaming and crying human rights violation.
Human right? Oh,
I
fuck.
listen. So Trump got like round one of this because more's coming. Supreme Court today did 5-4. Amy Coney Barrett again. That was a mistake. Dissented along the lines of the Liberal Party. But Trump won, and they said, Boasberg, that's the judge's name, you don't have the jurisdiction. You don't have
Yeah.
jurisdiction over
You're
a
a
nation.
district.
You have
Right.
jurisdiction over your district. So, GFY.
Yeah.
So, no, he's not coming back. That dude's staying in the terrorist prison that they built over there in El Salvador. And I'm waiting for Buchel's tweet about it. because I'm sure it'll be hilarious. Because he's been hilariously tweeting about all the gang members that America's been sending to him. And he's out there with his phone watching the flight come in. He's like, here they
Yeah.
come. I got them. I got them. And then 2 days later, he posts them all running around in their boxer shorts.
Yeah,
Like
with their
this in the
boxers and
prison.
their
He's like,
yeah.
here's what we
Oh,
do
you're
to
such a
terrorists.
badass. Yeah.
Here's what we do to
Oh,
terrorists.
this is the part I love. And they didn't even do a good job. I love that. I love that.
Intentionally,
And then
right?
Trump says, you know what? I wouldn't even mind if these American citizens that pull out a baseball bat and knock the shit out of an elderly person unwittingly, and they do this and they do that, I wouldn't mind sending them to El Salvador too. It'd be a lot cheaper than what we could incarcerate them for.
Well,
And
and
I was
then
like, yes.
oh, I know it's awesome. It cracks me up. Now, if I look at it constitutionally, we might have to do some
We got some
things.
issues. Yeah.
But given they do have civil liberties, if they are an American citizen,
Right.
which no one else. That's the thing. No one else has or civil liberties. If you're here illegally, you get no due process. Now
Right.
there are limitations to it. You'll get due process on a hearing for your deportation if you're nonviolent, but you're going to do it from outside of the United States.
From outside the US. Yep.
And that's your due process. You will get a hearing on why you were deported. And Marco Rubio's already told you, if you just leave now and apply to come here legally, you could start that process. No harm, no foul. No harm, no
We're not
foul.
talking
But if
about
you stay
you
here
not coming back ever again.
ever
If
again,
you leave now and come back through the
no
right
harm, no foul.
process, the way my wife did, it took
Yes.
5 freaking years, but we did it the right way. That, yeah,
Elon's mother, she had to wait 7 years in Canada to get her American citizenship.
yep,
She has no problem with that. And you'll see it. Like, if you look at her X feed, she has zero problem with the fact that she had to wait it out in Canada.
yeah,
None.
yep,
So, yeah.
yeah.
Anyways, well,
Tanya was the same way, dude. She worked cash, waiting for her green card and stuff. It wasn't like she was laying around waiting for America to do something for her. She had a bicycle and a basket full of cleaning supplies, and
mm-hmm.
she was going around and cleaning people's houses
Duh,
for cash while she was waiting for her green card. Right?
absolutely. And look, Trump couldn't be more generous here with the if you leave now, no harm, no foul. We'll just pretend it never happened.
Right.
And you've got these people at these rallies. I saw one, right? She's up there. She's like, I'm illegal. I'm an immigrant. I'm queer. I'm
Oh,
proud.
the big fat chick. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the only thing that it was on the tip of her tongue. She forgot to say it though. It was on the tip of her tongue. Is I'm gonna be deported soon. Because you're gonna get deported. You just did that on national TV.
Yeah.
Homan's coming to find you.
Yeah. Send your lazy fucking ass back to wherever you came from.
Oh yeah, I have no idea where it was, but you just admitted you're here
I think it
illegally.
was the Dominican.
Well, we've got a canoe and we've got a paddle. Start rowing. You
Yep.
know, you look. Uh, you're gonna be fine. We'll just get you fresh water. You don't need food. Just start rowing.
Yeah. You got plenty of mass.
Oh Jesus! So, obviously, you noticed everybody losing their mind over tariffs. Did you know Rome? I'm going to write a piece up on this on Substack. Maybe tomorrow. Did you know Rome implemented tariffs against trade partners?
Of course they did.
Everybody has.
Yeah.
Especially every the
Every great civilization has done that since the beginning of time.
yes. They can't like so I actually just posted that statement. I said, "Did you know Rome implemented tariffs against their trade partners?" And I had someone come up and say, "Of course, it's an account with like 5 followers. It's got no profile
Oh,
picture.
yeah. Yeah.
This is the dumbest tweet of all time." I didn't respond, but that's the response. The response I expected. Like they would have no idea. No, this is only. They don't even know that we had no income tax before the 1910s.
FDR. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So this whole freak out, it
They just
cracks me
don't
up.
they don't understand any of that kind of stuff. And they don't understand the other thing is, Sean, they don't understand the long game. They're all like immediately right here. Oh, he did these tariffs. Here's this list. Tariff, 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 tariff. But what they don't report on is, well, first thing this morning, the European Union contacted them and said, "Hey, we're going to zero out our tariffs."
Hmm.
And second thing this morning, Japan said, "Hey, we're going to zero out our tariffs." And
Right.
and that's what the long play is.
That is the
But
play.
they don't say that in the news. They just say tariff, tariff, tariff. Oh, recession, recession, recession.
We've been in a recession since COVID, and at the very end of Trump's administration, and then all the way through Biden's, we've been in a recession. And the only thing that Biden was able to do to float the global economy was to print money and to employ people with the government because
Right.
he couldn't employ people in the private sector. So he gave them jobs with the government.
Yep.
That is the stuff that will like literally bankrupt us. And the left is going, "Oh, these tariffs are going to bankrupt." Just like, you're boring me. You're boring me, left.
Yeah.
Uh, like if you want to have honest debate about this, I'm I I'm right here. We'll bring
Yeah.
you on the podcast.
Yeah. Let's
We
do
will
it.
absolutely bring you on the podcast, give you all the
Yeah.
time you need to explain to us how Donald Trump is going to bankrupt us, and that out of the hundreds of businesses Donald Trump has run or still runs through his family, how he used bankruptcy protection 6 times to his advantage.
Yeah.
I would bet many of them have used bankruptcy protection personally to protect something like their house,
Oh, sure.
right? That's what it's
Yeah.
there for. That's it was written into law. Trump used the law. He said it when he was
And
debating
now you're going
Hillary,
to bitch
right?
about the law.
How do I know the system's
Yeah.
corrupt? Because I use it. Just like all of your donors, Hillary Clinton. Oh god. Well, so also with these tariffs, I don't know if Trump's explaining it as well as he should. And look, it's okay to criticize Trump. This is more about free trade. It's so what is it like? We import, and it happened over time. It happened since Reagan. We import like 3,000% of what we're allowed to sell to
Oh,
China,
yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So it's really about free trade. It's not about penalizing. It's about getting other countries to start letting us sell product there. And what do we sell?
Exactly right.
We don't
Yep.
sell T-shirts. We don't. We don't sell coffee. We don't. We sell cars. We sell great cars.
Hmm.
and that industry has been dying because we've allowed BYDs and Kias, and I could just go on a
Yeah.
list of
On
auto
and
manufacturers
we
that we
sell
let.
great construction equipment. We have great Cat is one of
Cat,
the great things. And no, we import Komatsu, we import Kubota, we import, TYM and all these other ones that
dude, the lawnmower industry, Dixie Chopper, probably the coolest lawnmower that ever existed, went out of business because it was like it was tariffed to shit and couldn't
yeah,
be bought by any other country but America.
yep,
But you could get a cheap South Korean lawn ride on, right? Zero turn mower for
yeah,
5 grand instead of paying Dixie Chopper 12 grand.
yeah,
That's what a tariff does. It levels the playing field,
yep,
right? And that's
yeah, yeah, yep,
so Dixie Chopper, Putnam County, Indiana was its headquarters at a regional airport there. No, a local airport. It couldn't even handle a full size cargo plane. That's where they shipped all their stuff, whether it was by truck or by plane, and they'd ship it by small cargo plane to get it to Indianapolis, to get it repackaged for a jumbo jet to ship it. A really incredible. I'm sure you know. You remember Dixie Chopper, right?
Dixie Chopper was the first zero turn out there.
Mm-hmm.
There were no zero turns except Dixie Chopper. I
Right.
mean, so Skag got on board after that, but the original was Dixie Chopper.
And it was, man, they were cool. Like
They were badass, dude. Yeah.
everybody in America that could afford one bought one. They were just
I paid
cool.
15 grand for my Skag zero turn.
Sure.
Yeah. And it's American made, American built, and my service provider, he uses all Skag replacement parts and stuff like that. And so, yeah. But Dixie Chopper was the first one.
Well, they were the OG, and
Yeah.
the reason they went under was because they couldn't sell anywhere but domestic, and but foreign competitors were underselling them by half the price in America.
Yeah.
So if it was
So,
15
so,
grand
li-
for a Dixie at the
so here's
time,
the problem. So I've got a 72-inch. I got the biggest deck you could get because I've got a huge yard. I've got 7 acres of yard. And so I bought a 72-inch, paid 15 grand for it.
yep,
It's got a 40 horsepower Kawasaki engine on it, but it's built in Indiana, except for the engine. Um, but I could go to my local um, tractor supply and get a bad boy brand, you know, for half the money, 7,500 for the
right,
same mower.
right,
But it's not the same mower. The deck, my 72-inch deck is 3/8 welded metal. The the bad boy is, 1/4 inch or something. It's just a real thin
right.
metal deck, and it's not the same. But what they're playing on is, you know, Joe shit yuppie guy who doesn't know the difference between, mowing decks and, I've got replaceable race bearings on all of my pulleys.
Right.
The bad boys don't. They're just stamped. And when they go, you've got to replace the whole thing. Mine have, uh, Zerk fittings on them, but you can't tell that to a guy that's got a Tahoe Denali that's going to buy a zero turn, right?
No, you're 100% right. It reminds me of the same argument. I saw this argument a while ago and I jumped on board. Uh, it was about the tariffs, and someone said something about vacuum cleaners, and I said, well, Kirby and Hoover, there's still people that have their Kirby or their Hoover from 40 years ago that work like brand new.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, but those things were, and they named a dollar price. I said, yeah, I agree with you. And my Walmart vacuum's $100. And I said, you replace it every 6 months. So over those 40 years, you spent more money replacing a vacuum every 6 months than you did by buying a Hoover or a Kirby.
Yeah. Remember Rainbow?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rainbow was come to your house and lock you up for 60 months, and but they had that was a piece of equipment. It,
I
it wasn't a vacuum, it was a piece of equipment. That thing was badass.
I did a summer in between working and going to college of Kirby door to door.
Did you
Uh,
really?
yeah, and one of the coolest things was I had to call my boss one day because, right, it's the hey, so they got a trade in. It's a Kirby, and he's like, oh, all right, what year is it? And I was like, I don't remember. It was old, like
Yeah.
30 years old. He's like, wait, what address are you at again? He's like, I will be there in 30 minutes. Stalled him. I want to see this fucking thing. I've never seen one that old. And he came in and he offered them like top trade-in dollar for it
No way.
because it was now a collector's item,
Yeah.
right? And he's like, whole. He walked in
Yeah.
the door. He's like, hey, I'm Sean's boss. I'm here. I'm the one that can offer the trade-in value. And they're like, oh, cool, right? He made the freaking deal because they had held on to that Kirby vacuum for 30 years, and we're now buying, finally 30 years later, the second Kirby vacuum.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. No, my mom had this Electrolux.
oh yeah,
That was the long tube with the chrome sliders on it,
yup.
and the hose was indestructible. It was made out of unobtainium. I don't know what it was made out of, but she bought it in like 1968, and then in 2000, she's like, "Yeah, I should probably replace this." And it was $800, and she's like, "Oh, Daddy, we're not paying that. Oh no, we're not paying that money." And she kept that damn thing
Yeah.
forever.
Well, do you remember with there actually used to be vacuum stores that would serve those brands, and
Yep,
if something failed, you just took it and they're like, "Yeah, we got the part. We'll swap it out for you.
yep,
40 bucks, ma'am.
yep,
40 bucks. We'll get your motor. We'll
yep,
swap your motor out. Whatever happened to it, it got gunked up, it failed. Yeah, 40 bucks. Well, and you'd take it home brand new. You can't do that with the Tamaguchi Kamakaba
yeah,
vacuum you get from Walmart.
yeah. The shark. Yeah,
Oh God.
you're not doing it with a shark. Uh,
No, you're
But
not.
so the same thing. I've got an Omega and I've got a Rolex,
Yeah.
and my Omega I just sent in for my 5 year maintenance.
Yeah, get the springs redone.
Yeah, it $700 to get it done, but I paid 3 grand for it 20 years ago. They're 9 grand now. That
Oh
same
yeah.
watch is 9 grand. So yeah, I'll pay the $700. It was 900 to get my Submariner. So I told myself, Sean, when I was a gunslinger, I was not going to get a Submariner because every goddamn gunslinger had a Submariner. And that's why I went with the Omega, because it was the James Bond,
Oh yeah.
you know, watch. And I'm glad I did. And the $4,500 uh, Rolex Submariner is now 12 grand. Just a basic stock. Yeah, 12 grand.
There, we'll have to get into collectibles at some point in time, just on stuff like that, because there's a whole lifestyle around this type of merchandise,
Yep.
and it beckons to days when stuff lasted forever, which brings me back to tariffs and
Right.
importing cheap shit into the
Yep.
United States that literally lasts you 6 months, doesn't have a warranty, you can't work on it. So even if you open the damn thing up, you couldn't get a part to fix the thing. You
Yep.
end up just throwing it in the trash. So now you got all this copper wire and plastic that you're smashing with a bulldozer into a trash heap, right?
Yep.
Things were just different. They were better. They were better.
Oh,
And you can
absolutely.
say we're not
So
going, but
I've got a Seiko automatic divers. Um, that was the upper end, up in Seiko.
well,
Uh, that I paid, I don't know, like $110 for in the 80s. This thing is $2,500 now,
oh yeah,
and I still have it, and it absolutely works flawlessly. So I'm an automatic watch guy. I'm not a quartz. I'm not a solar. I'm gonna wind it up, and then when I walk, it charges itself and stuff.
yeah. That's the one of the ones I have. There is no wind function. It just works off the
Yeah,
motion of walking.
yeah.
And I do have a '96 Seiko that my aunt got me when she was working she worked for many years as a jeweler. And
Oh,
right,
really?
yeah, and my parents at the time were like, "Holy crap, you're giving a yeah, he's not even in college yet. You're giving him a Seiko?" No, I still have it. I proved everybody wrong. I didn't pawn it. I didn't hawk it. I didn't sell it for a bag of weed.
Yep.
No, I still have it. I do need to get a spring replaced in it because the action turn, like to push it in, I can't get it to function to go in to actually make the turn so that I wind the spring for the watch. So that spring, I've got to get
Oh,
fixed.
yeah, yeah.
But like the trouble is finding a jeweler that actually works on
That
anything
knows how
anymore,
to do that. Yeah.
right? And that's what I've struggled with. I thought I had found one at one point in time, and I took it in. They shipped it off, shipped it back like 6 weeks later, because the guy he thought it, like apparently he thought he worked on it, shipped it back, and thought he fixed it, and I was like, so I went and picked it up from the store, and they're like, listen, he's the only guy that we know that works on mechanical watches, but he's really old, so he clearly thought he worked on your watch and didn't. So we're sorry. Obviously, we're not going to charge you, but they're like, if you can find, they're like, we don't know, nobody does this anymore. It's a
Right.
lost art,
Yeah.
right? Working on micromechanics with a
Yeah.
big old magnifying glass and
Yeah.
tweezers. And
Yeah.
that's
So,
disappointing.
yeah, my Omega, I sent it to Switzerland to Omega because, there's nobody at Jared or, you
Right.
know, any of those.
No,
They don't, they're like,
no
they don't
mall
know.
jewelers. No mall
Yeah.
jewelers. You'd have to be talking like a high end jeweler
Yeah.
that like does
There's
Rolex.
probably a couple of those guys like in New York or Chicago or something. You know what I mean? The old papaw guys that probably still do it. But yeah, I send my Rolex to Rolex. I send my Omega
Right.
to Omega and let them.
Right, but it's not even you can't even go to the big city and go to the Rolex store and have that work done. You have to send
No,
it.
so that's what I did. So the other day I had to go to Dallas for work, and I went to the Omega store, And I literally took my Omega off my wrist and said, "Hey, I need to get my 5-year service."
Yeah.
Well, what's wrong with it? Nothing wrong with
Nothing.
it. Works perfect. Nothing wrong with it. But Omega recommends every 5 years you get a service done. He
Yep.
said, "Okay." Uh, and I said, I went to Jared last time because that's where I bought it, and they sent it to Omega. They didn't work on it, at Jared. But you guys are an Omega store with Omega people, so that's you know that's why I'm here. He goes, "Oh no, we're going to send it to Omega too. We're not going to work on it."
Wow.
I'm
Wow.
like, okay. So
So again, these would be high-paying jobs
yes,
that we don't do anymore
no, we don't do them
because we
anymore.
imported a bunch of cheap shit.
Yep,
That we've become a disposable economy.
yep,
And it's disappointing because I like quality. I like whatever it is that I buy the most expensive version of it I can afford.
right.
And I expect it to last forever. The computer we're running this podcast on right now is 10 years old. Tell somebody in tech that I'm running a podcast from a 10-year-old machine, but I paid the as much as I could afford 10
Right.
years ago when I bought this. And
Yep.
when I retire this one, I'm probably going to dump some ridiculous amount of thousands, like six, seven, $8,000 to get 10 years out of another machine.
Oh yeah. So Tanya's an artist and
Mhm.
she's a Apple person, and I got her a 17-inch, you know, $2,500
Yeah.
top of the line Apple so she could manipulate the photos and all that kind of stuff. Well, it's 10 years old now. And so for her birthday, I'm going to get her a new one.
Yep.
And they're $3,800 now
Oh, absolutely.
just to replace the same thing.
But if I got the $500 one that only lasts 2 years,
Yeah.
all right, so like
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
you're at the same or more. You're probably at more money.
And that's what I tell. So listen, dude, we get, Tanya and I go back and forth over this shit all the time. She's like, dude, look at these polos. They're only $19 at Old Navy. And I'm like, yeah, because they're an Old Navy polo.
It'll last 3 washes.
Yeah. So look at my $100 Psycho Bunny polo that I've had for 12 years and is still the bluest of blue. The collar lays flat. It's the best that. Look at there's there is a Gant brand that's big in Europe, not so big in the States. But every time we go home to Bosnia and stuff, there's a Gant store. So I picked me up a couple of,
Yeah.
€100 Gant polos. I've had them for 20 years, Sean. They're
That's the
absolutely the
thing.
same as the first day I bought
That's
them.
the thing, right? Like they right, you got 20 years out of it, not 6 months.
Yeah,
So I don't very rarely will you find me buying something that's disposable.
yeah.
I just
Now
don't
some
do
of
it.
these,
But
so
but
these,
I was also raised by boomers. I
yeah,
grew up different. I'm older, right? I'm Gen X, but I also remember my grandparents who were the greatest generation, and they witnessed the Great Depression, right? And they're like, no, you like this is
yep,
you're only gonna have 3 shirts, but they're gonna be
yep,
the best 3 shirts you can possibly have.
yep.
Stop dripping your hot dog ketchup on them. Damn
My
it, Sean!
mom, my mom, I swear to God, dude, I love her to death. But when I was a little kid, she would go to Goodwill and buy me a Ralph Lauren polo, but it had this huge pizza stain on it. But she's like, it's Ralph Lauren, baby. I got your Ralph Lauren polo. And I'm like, it looks like I'm breastfeeding. It's got a stain on it, Mom. You know, I would never say that out loud because my dad would smack the shit out of me.
Right.
But here I am, going to school with a stained shirt, because she had got it for me for 99 cents at Goodwill, and it was such a great price.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Well, we're running up against the buzzer, but man, we got to
All right.
talk about Grandma, who used to make me on my mom's side, and my dad and my brother. She would knit us wool sweaters for Christmas every year, and
Really?
of course, my mom would make us wear them to Christmas, and we're like
Oh,
this the
yeah.
whole time, like,
Yeah.
like
It
what?
wasn't modern wool. It was
It was
yeah,
wool.
yeah.
It was animal hair twined up to be thread. So, all right, hey, so I'm gonna click buttons. You want to close out with what we opened with?
Yeah, why not, dude?
All right, man. Listen, thank you so much for joining us. I will get you on the YouTube later. I don't know what happened to the X thing. I'll see what the error was there, but we got streamers on Rumbles, Locals, and Twitch. Thank you guys. We appreciate it. Give us a like, give us a follow, even better.
Yeah, that'd be even better.
All right.
All right, brother.